Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Village of Gold River Committee of the Whole. Just like to start off with our land acknowledgement and recognize that we're on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of Mount Michelet First Nations. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Introduction of late items. Mr. Roy, lead item, sir.
No, your worship.
Council late items, would like to introduce the agenda? Saying none, no. Approval agenda, that the agenda be adopted as presented. Who'd care to move it? Councillor Pickard, second, Councillor Pringle, second by Councillor Pickard. Any discussion? Call the question, favor, carried. No public and statutory hearings, moving on. Unfinished business, none, moving on. Delegation, seeing none, moving on. Administrative reports. Motion is that the 2026 draft 5-year financial plan projects that council received the report for information. Who would care to move it? Councillor Waymar, second by Councillor Pickard. Discussion. Really the reason why we're here tonight. Anybody want to start us off? Okay, that was 1 minute. That was probably the fastest meeting we've ever had. Call for adjournment. No, no, okay. I'm sure these gentlemen came out tonight. We should probably ask them a few questions. Wow, you must have that's a pretty good one. Oh, Councillor Waymar.
Yeah, I think this would be a great opportunity to send it to our staff to give us a little bit of a high overview of the projects coming up in 2026 and beyond. And then probably that'll facilitate a bit more discussion.
I think it's a terrific idea. Thank you, sir. We'll cede the floor to you, CAO, if you want to speak to your report.
Thank you, Worship.
For the Director of Operations, welcome.
So we do have a project listing here. That 2026 is just over $5 million. Of course, the majority of that one is the universal water metering project, which is just over $3 million.
Well done, you guys.
We have some projects that are being carried forward from 2025 to 2026, which is the envelope for this building is being carried forward. We've got the dredging is still being worked on and carried forward. We're carrying forward a bit of Nipkish Park, but we were adding on to it with funding from the
Growing Communities Fund.
Growing Communities Fund. Thank you, Worship.
Lots of different grants out there. Hard to keep them all in mind.
Those are probably the main carry forward that are in here.
The well number 1 project?
Yeah, the well number 1, yes. And so with new projects, we're up for discussion with council with replacing our finance system with a new finance system, funding that from the COVID restart funding. We've got the SCBA replacement on there. We've got some SBA coming in under this year's one, and as council approved the grant application at the last council meeting, we were going to go for some more SCBA. So we're replacing and upgrading to the current standards on our SCBA through 100% grant funding. We got our regular public works vehicle replacement program on here. We do have the wharf crane review on here. That's going to be subject to the inspection, and we'll have some further review on whether it's something we want to proceed with based on the usage at this time. At this point, we potentially have just one user in the fall, and that's about it. And that does not generate much in revenue. I think last year was about $1,000 in stuff coming across the wharf, and that would be for the not the seaweed, the jellyfish, I think. Yeah. So we have them coming in, doing harvest at this time of the year right now, but it doesn't generate a lot of revenue to really justify that type of an expenditure. So it will be something closely looked at by our Director of Operations. Nipkish Park, I'd mentioned, we're looking at doing something more there. We'll have more detailed plans coming up, but we've got a earmarked figure in there to work within. Net zero project, I think I'll leave for Joe and to discuss the digital messaging we discussed last year. Hot water tank stuff that this year we did have, we had it in 2025. We deferred to doing something in 2025 because the arena one took priority based on its condition. And then we got about 3 boilers that are probably coming up for replacement at the aquatic center over the next few years. So that's what's being projected in there. We do have the water line still in there with planning to start on that. There are some sanitary line renewals, main renewal to be looked at, and again, what grant funding. I'll turn over to Joe to see if there's some things he'd like to chip in on.
If I may, through your worship, I think he's like captured it largely. Maybe if it's helpful, I can go through some of the equipment replacement stuff that might be of interest or use. Let me just find it here. We have 2026. There's some big numbers in there. One of them is Unit 1. It's a 97 Ford that is up for renewal, and that would be a plow, dump truck, and a sander. So it's a fairly expensive unit, estimated at 160 grand. Also in 2026 is a bigger flat deck trailer to accommodate our excavator. And also it'll be a dumping trailer so we can move around materials, which it will be helpful given our little dump trucks get used as plows and sanders. And so when the sander body is in the back, we don't have any way to move material around. So that'll help with that.
Excellent.
Again, we get some bigger stuff here in 2028. Number 26 is a holder tractor that's up for renewal that comes with some attachments. I should highlight at this point that we are reviewing that in conjunction with a number 43, the Kubota mower. It's a $28,000 mower that is scheduled for 2029. So those 2 units we are reviewing to see in the future if those can be one unit with separate attachments or separate units. We're still kind of in the shopping range, but for right now we're budgeting based on kind of replacing kind and kind. So anyway, that's back to 2028. So there's also a vac tank for the porta potties, replacing key components of that at $20,000 in 28. Let's see, 2029 sees that Kubota mower, like the aforementioned thing that we need to look at for some synergies with the holder tractor. So the Kubota mower, and then we'd be also starting to get up for looking for a used ice resurfacer. Thinking that we can get a used one for around $100,000.
Okay.
Again, that's 2029, so it's a few years out. So between now and then, we'll be looking at what are the options with what we have, rebuilds, used materials, to make sure that we're getting something that'll give us an appropriate life cycle if we're looking to get another 10 or 15 or 20 years out of it. So 2029, we also have the Unit 27. I don't have the year on that one, but it's a $130,000 plow truck.
That's your
generally like a
Dodge.
5-ton truck with a blade and typically a dump body on it. And Unit 2 comes up in 2030, and that's probably another big one. That's the case wheel loader, and that one is I don't have the year on here, but I saw it right before I left. It's going to be just at or just over the 20-year mark by the time it comes up for renewal in 2030. So just as a kind of a general rule, it's a little bit smaller here in Gold River when we run a little bit less hours and a little less kilometerage. So we're able to get a few more years out of some of our equipment. So I won't say like best practices to replace everything at 10 years or 15 years, but if you were say in Nanaimo, that would be the practice. And like I say, like we do have to kind of be like recognizing that we put like something like 10,000 kilometers a year on our equipment. So if it's well maintained and looked after, we can get 15, plus years out of it. But 20, there is at some point it does become unreliable. So that's it for the equipment. The other item that might be of interest was probably the well 1 renewal that I maybe should speak to. So we did a report that has to come to council yet for information to be accepted. It is done, it's final at this point. One of the things that was identified is that if you drill a well, any well for community use, it will trigger a gas GARP, groundwater at risk of pathogens. I had to remake my acronym in my head there. It will trigger us groundwater at risk of pathogens analysis. And so as much information that we can ascertain beforehand will reduce the risks and better clarify the outcomes of that GARP assessment. So basically, the more information that we know ahead of time, the more refined our risk and the tighter of a design ultimately that we can come up with. So to support that effort, and it also makes our operating and maintenance cost and ultimately risk and liability lower. But the first task would be a flood hazard assessment for 2026. There was a historical flood event, I believe it was late 70s, and it overtook the well field, and there was some berming that took place along the Gold River or the Heber, or right the interface there at the Gold and the Heber. But I don't know if it doesn't appear, I haven't found any engineering design for said berm or anything. We haven't been flooded since then, but the flood hazards assessment would be geared specifically for that area to identify if our current wells, new wells, or would be at risk, should be raised up. They can be in the same area, and you simply build them on a mound, like a localized mound. It could be a meter, it could be 3 meters, it could be a foot. But we can ascertain that through the flood hazard assessment. And the second item would be a condition assessment for wells number 2 and 3. And so that one is for $35,000, also intended to be initiated for 2026. For the sake of timing, it's probably important to understand that a flood hazard assessment could feed information into a condition assessment. So we would do the flood hazard assessment first, and then later in the year, we would move forward with the condition assessments. And so because of that, I've left a little time between 2026 and then the actual implementation. So if the condition assessment takes more than the rest of 2026 and carries over into 2027, I've moved the actual drilling of a new well into 2028. And right now it's estimated at $65,000 based on the report and inflation, engineering costs, and permitting and all of that. And I should make a note that because we're doing a flood hazard assessment and we're doing condition assessments, the price for that is subject to change or a refinement over the next, say 2 years here. Those are probably the more complex things that I can think of in the budget. The net zero project, that's another one that's probably worth hitting on. We got a grant through CRIS, Climate Resiliency Infrastructure Sustainability program, and it's 100% funded for the consulting and engineering assessment. And so they've been out and they've done some assessments on our pool and the arena. And we don't have the final report yet, but it's basically looking at recovering as much heat from the arena, and utilizing that energy over on the pool side, as we use a lot of propane in our heating processes. So taking anything left off of the arena and over to the pool and heat energy to help us reduce our operating cost. So what I do have in the 26 budget is $120,000 to move forward or implement that program. I don't know what the outcomes are going to be because I don't have the report yet. It's still in the process. When that report comes out, that would be brought to council for information, and we would have a discussion about the timing of proceeding with any proposed or recommended outcomes. So there will be another chance to visit that if we want to move forward, if $120,000 is too much, if it's not enough, but we can have that conversation. And also probably the important note there is that anything that we can do to reduce operating cost earlier than later helps us in the long run too. So, but we can bring you some, when we bring that report forward, we can bring you some numbers on the finances and what that looks like, if it's more advantageous to move forward earlier, or do we push that out or what. But for right now, we're budgeting on kind of like the best case scenario or worst case scenario, depending on how you look at it.
Excellent. Thank you, Director of Operations Doxy. Councilors, that stimulate any interest? Councilor Weimer.
Thank you for that overview. And yeah, it was great looking at the budget, and we've got $5 million worth of projects, and we'll call it 4 million-ish of it is all grant funded. So congratulations to you guys. That's amazing. There are about 3 questions that weren't answered through that. First and foremost, Nimkish Park, kind of looking for some sort of sneak peek from you guys as to what $500,000 would be getting us.
Right now, that is a placeholder. I don't have even the draft report just yet. There's still some more work to do between the consultant and the public engagement to kind of come up with some preliminary ideas and proposed areas where that could go. So it's still a ways out.
Okay. Number 2 would be the Mushlet Bridge. I believe last year we asked to have you go and find a response from Modi about are they going to be ripping it apart anytime soon before we proceeded. So did Modi or whatever they call themselves these days respond?
If it may, again, through your worship, I have a phone call and an email into the local area, I believe local area director or person responsible, Michael Pearson. I haven't heard back from him yet, but it's only been in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So I'll be following up with them, and before we go through final approval, I'll certainly let you know or share I'm looking for a written response from him.
Just add a note, also for our Director of Operations awareness, I actually have a meeting with Modi tomorrow, which I believe Mr. Pearson will be on
Okay.
tomorrow morning about our highway.
Perfect. Thanks for that update. Councilor Raymer, do you have
Yeah.
one more question?
And number 3, the dredging. Are we still awaiting permits to get that done? I know it's been on our radar for a long time now.
Again, if I may, through your worship, that project is close to ready to move. We are trying to align the project with the First Nations project, who also wants to do some dredging. And my understanding is that they are working with the federal government to expand the area of dredging that they were interested in getting done. I don't know all the details to their conversations with the federal government, but just that we're using the same consultant for the project, and they're keeping us apprised as much as they can. And for the sake of synergies or economies of scale, it will make sense to do them at the same time. Just because in the water, when you have a river actively discharging into the inlet, you really can't like dredge and clean up one area of fine silts and sediments along an exact line, and then have it stay and hold and not have this area just quickly blend over without dredging the whole area. So there's some physicality or mechanical rationale as to why we want to also combine our projects.
Thank you so much.
Any third questions, Councilor Raymer?
That's everything.
Good. Councilor Pringle?
Thank you to the chair. I just have 2 questions.
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to know if there's an update on the water meters. Because I'm sorry, I haven't been here, so I don't really have an idea what's happening there. And I also would like to know the new garbage truck, how that is working out, and if we're having any problems with bins.
Okay. Director of Operations?
If I may, through your worship, the first item was the water meters. The water meter program is out for competition right now and closes in early November. I can't remember the date it closes off the top of my head. I have one. I am in receipt of one proposal at this point, but it hasn't closed yet. And then the other item is the garbage truck. It's generally working out pretty well. The auto tipper is working particularly well, other than like say really short cans. We are having some difficulty with the 3-yard bins. The good news is we only have 3. There's one down at I think the WFP. We have one at the pool, and then we have one at the Ridge restaurant. So we don't have a lot of them, but the 3-yarders we are having trouble with. We're gonna probably go back to the vendor and see if we can have some modifications made. So, but yeah, it's working. It just the 3-yard bins, for whatever reason, when they tip, they're having trouble getting it to tip far enough so that the garbage slides out. And the 2 yards, it sounds like are no problem, but anyway, it is a work in progress.
Councillor Pickard?
Thank you. Thanks through the chair, and thanks Director Doxy and Administrator Roy for going through this report. It's great to see. Just one general question. Councillor Waymeyer noticed all the grants that we have and how much of their projects are funded by them, which is amazing. And the village is so lucky that we have you guys on the ball with them. And I'm just wondering, I kind of noticed in some different areas, like in restoration and in Indigenous partners, that they're been mentioning that the grants funding kind of streams are kind of slowing down and there's less and less grants. And one of the major BC Salmon Restoration Innovation Fund is slowing down and the grant program closing. So just for kind of big picture view or next section, and even noticing the sewer capital reserve gets in the negative soon. Are you guys finding that with infrastructure or village or municipal grants? Are you noting closeouts of programs or less funding? Do we have to be aware of, or is it still looking good for the future?
I think we still have the same revenue sources that we still have going on. We still have the gas tax that comes on a regular basis. So some of the grants that we're using are still there. Whether it'll be new initiatives along the lines of supporting economic development and whatnot, may be a different story over the next few years with the way the provincial budget is. But right now, I haven't heard anything on our core funding that we are currently receiving.
That's what we were hoping to hear. Thank you. And then just one question, Director Doxy, about the well, the well and the flood hazard assessment and groundwater risk of pathogens. Are you guys wanting to have that well kind of in the same areas, those three, on purpose to be close to the aquifer in that spot?
If I may again through your worship, without giving up too much of the report, yes. Turns out our well field is the ideal location. So it would go, the new well would be proposed kind of in my head here, northeast of the existing well one. There's a little bit of a plateau area kind of tucked up, kind of behind the track, between the trees, the track, and or I guess Hilkey Road, some trees, a flattened area, plateau, and then the running track, football or soccer pitch. I'm not a sports person.
Okay, well, that's awesome without giving up too much, but good for logistics and for being close down there. Yeah, do you have polygons for that? And so our dogs still not going to be allowed to pee and poo there, but the campers can still camp? Just joking. I'm just joking. Thank you. Oh yeah, no, it was the MFN. Councillor Waymeyer got it. Thank you.
Very good.
The dredging, yeah.
I had an opportunity to look at the project summary for 5 years. I looked at all of the work that's being proposed in these 5 years, and it is very ambitious, very ambitious. There is a lot in here in terms of equipment replacement, replacing pieces of our infrastructure that have been worn out, repairing pipes, upgrading buildings, lots and lots and lots of projects. When I looked at all those projects, I said, I wonder what they cost altogether. Like, holy smokes, there's a lot of numbers here. So I added them up. What do you guys think that we're looking at over 5 years here in terms of total expenditure? I'll tell you. Because I thought you might be interested. My calculations were approximately $9,328,850.
50 cents, but that's okay.
Oh, okay, yeah, there may have been 50 cents in there. Could have been a little bit. And of that $9,328,850, our staff over the years have been able to put together $5,903,065 worth of grants, leaving the village of Gold River, our portion of it, be $3,425,785. Wow. I remember when we started here about 3 years ago, we talked about how we're going to do that. Like, that's a big number and we can't afford it. So it was absolutely imperative for this management group, and this council, employees, everybody that's involved in the process, to be able to secure as many grants as possible. I think one of the things that I commented on a long time ago is that if it didn't have a grant attached to it, I didn't really want to see it until it did have a grant attached to it. And I think we can compliment our staff because I think they've taken it to heart, because if you look at this, nearly every single item on here virtually has a grant attached to it. If it's not in full 100%, it's a percentage. But basically what it translates into is for every 33 cents approximately that we're taxing our citizens, we're getting leverage of another 66, 67 cents from the provincial and federal government to pay for everything that's on this list. And if you dig down into this list, there is a lot of things that Gold River needs to have done. But without this grants and the acquisition of those grants, we wouldn't have been able to afford. So we would have continued to see deterioration, decline. But now, because of the efforts of these folks that are here, a lot of the stuff is going to get done. So, yeah, I'd like to echo the sentiments of Councillor Waymire and Councillor Pickard. Usually, we don't hear that harmony, like everybody's on the same theme, but I think everybody acknowledges and recognizes that in order for Gold River to work and for us to get things done that we need to get done, and this, like I said, there's a lot of things in here. Without these grants, that wouldn't be happening. So I do want to recognize that, because it makes it's how we have to do business here. As I go down the list, there's a number of things on here that I was interested in, but by going last, I think they've already been touched on. But there are some things that I was a little concerned about, but you guys addressed them already. The first one was Public Works and all the equipment that we're replacing. When you look at 180,000 this year and 205,000 and 220, or 2028, 258,000, 229, 250 in 2030, that's a lot of money. That's close to $1 million worth of equipment that we're replacing. So I'm glad that you clarified it and laid it out again for us, because I have gone down and taken a look at some of the equipment, talked with yourself, Director of Operations, Doxy, and the mechanic down there. And these are pieces of equipment that were stretching beyond their beyond their life expectancy. And I appreciate that you guys are working hard to try and get every extra hour and kilometer out of those pieces of equipment, so that, again, we can make the Village of Gold River work. So I do appreciate that. And and when I look at all of the work that you got planned, I kind of wanted to do a capacity assessment to see how you're possibly going to get all this stuff done. I don't want to deter you, go for it. But I looked at it and I think I counted about maybe 15 projects that you have listed down there. So it's a very ambitious year from what I can see. So from a capacity perspective, is this realistic, or is this just, basically a very ambitious list that you put up there and you hope to achieve as much as possible?
To your worship,
Sure.
I do think we have capacity to do these projects. I think it kind of goes hand in hand with your comments as to the grant, the ratio of funding through grants.
Yes, sir.
And I've been fortunate to have inherited probably the work of previous administrative staff and probably previous councils that have allowed funding to move forward, and previous studies. Projects are much easier to get grants for when you have a certain level of preliminary investigation or analysis done, preliminary engineering in some cases. It makes it really easy to go after the grant, and it also makes it very easy to draft up requests for proposals, tenders, and whatnot. And then similarly, I have a pretty decent repertoire of past tenders and RFPs that I don't have to reinvent the wheel each time. So it's pretty quick to put these out in short order, and then it's the vendor really doing the hard lifting or the heavy lifting. It's when we do engineering reports and studies that we think we're hiring somebody and they do all the work. It doesn't quite work out like that so much. You end up hiring an engineer or consultant on those ones. And there's a lot of lifting at the front end by staff that have to go and get the background or get the drawings and scan them. And there's a lot of legwork on those, but we're in a fortunate spot where we have a lot of shelf ready stuff. So I think we're in good shape.
That's excellent.
Long way of
Nice to
saying
hear
it.
that. Yeah, one of the concepts that I've become really familiar with in situations like this where we're asking people to do a lot more with a lot fewer resources is a capacity box. You got to be realistic at some time and say, you know, here's the capacity box. This is what we have the capability for with the resources that we have. Are we being realistic about what we can achieve? And you know your capacity box and the organization's capacity box probably as well as anyone. So because you're at the forefront of that and you're the person that's going to be providing the deliverables. So if you feel, sir, that you're capable of doing all this and you can work that in with your capacity box, I'm very pleased to hear that, because that to me is a very ambitious program. And that's what I like to see, because that falls in with the theme of getting more done for less. Not less for less, which I'm a strong advocate of. One of the things I want to talk to you folks about, Mr. Roy's report. It's a paragraph on the first page where it goes, the outlook for our reserves is improved as we are using more grant funding to fund projects. I think we've discussed that. And with the planned introduction of an allocation to reserves for asset management, the focus is improved over the 2020 outlook. Positive, as we have not been adding to the reserves. The sewer capital reserve is projected to run out in 2027. I'd like to discuss that with you folks. Year later in 2025, with the situation beginning to improve. Continued considerations will be required on how projects will be addressed. Either projects will need to be delayed, receive grant funding, or capital borrowing. And if you go on the second page, you can see that graph, that reserve graph, and it looks a lot healthier now that the council has approved the management proposed reserve and surplus policy. And I can see that you can start seeing that those bars are kind of changing instead of going all underwater like the sewer capital reserve is looking. And 2027, we're starting to see these bar graphs looking a little healthier. Sewer capital reserve, I just don't understand how we pay for things when we don't have money in the reserves. So that's a fundamental question I wanted to address. One of the things that we talked about when we looked at that reserve and surplus policy is that we indicated in our general fund, our sewer fund and our water fund, that we wanted to have a certain minimum and maximum in there. I think the minimum was, if you can refresh my memory if I'm wrong, was 2 months, and the maximum was 6 months of our operating budget. And anything beyond that 6 months would be considered more than we're required to have in that fund in order to provide that funding if we required it. There's also a statement that we didn't want to have anything dramatically over that top number that we had, because it would be just funds that would be sitting in an account, not really doing anything when they could be reallocated to other sources. So one of the things I wanted to talk to CAO about, because it falls more, I think, in his area, financial, is there a way that we can look at our general fund, our water fund, sewer fund, our operating surpluses, and and in those funds, if we have a CLPSUT number that we've identified as being the amount that we want to have in there as a maximum, can we take anything that's surplus in those counts and move them into our capital works reserve, sewer capital reserve, water capital reserve? Administrator Roy?
Thanks, Your Worship. Of course, that policy you're referring to was only passed last Monday, so it's only a week old.
That's a great policy. I want to put it to work.
But in getting ready for tonight's meeting, I didn't have a lot of time in between to go and break down the numbers to try and allocate some of that money. I was able to get some of that done today. So if council wishes, there is a way that we can try, following that policy that will increase the amount that's going into the sewer reserve that we're not going underwater, as the mayor so eloquently stated. So to still stay within this, the half year maximum of the general sewer and water funds, we could still have the ability to transfer about 885,000 to general, to the capital works, about 375 to the sewer, and 295 to the water reserves, which would then put us above water.
Well, that's a much better looking graph, bar graph, than the one that we've got in our report right now.
That's much prettier.
Yeah, much prettier.
So that's with that, and that's again bringing ourselves, hopefully, by the time we have our public presentation, we'll be having a balanced budget in front of council to maintain and hopefully hit this target. And with the initiatives that we put in place in this budget process for the asset management and whatnot, it'll, as you can see, there starts to be some increases starting to happen in the years 3 through 5. So
Does that reflect the fact that we may be approving that 3.9% for the asset management in 2000 and?
it does reflect that in those 3 years. That's what I was referring to, the asset management coming
8, 9.
online in the 3rd year through 5th year.
Yes,
And
sir.
that's why, like you can see in the sewer, it's starting to inch up, same within the water capital.
Wow, I tell you what, that looks a lot better than most of the bar graphs you bring us. So, in order to do that, sir, do you have to refresh me on the policy? How, do you need a resolution to do that? Do you have to bring a resolution to council for us to approve in order for you to make those reallocations?
In my world, I would say yes, your worship. One, it keeps the process transparent. 2, it's not budgeted that we're doing those transfers. So by having a resolution of council, it supports that for when the auditors decide to take a look at our,
Well, I
they
think,
move the money around.
I think from my experience, this is probably one of the most open, transparent, and accountable administrations that I've worked with in my career. I've never, ever seen in any of the communities that I've worked with a program like Open Book where where it's been pursued by staff and advocated with staff so that we could make sure that the public, employees, council, anybody who wants to access this publicly accessible on our webpage can go in and get real-time information on where we are with our budgets. That's an amazing program. I've never worked with anything like that. I was quite impressed when the administrator brought it forward, when I kept on asking about our financial responsibility, that, that theme and what we could do in trying to be more open and transparent and accountable. And he brought this forward. I'd never seen anything like that, but it's just an absolutely amazing program. And to be quite honest, I like it. The more transparent we are, I think, the better it is for the management of public finances. But yeah, I would love to do that. I like that much more than, although your report's really interesting, than the bar graph I see in your report. So in order for us to do that, do you need a resolution from council in order to give you the direction in order to bring this forward to us as a resolution to vote on?
Yes, your worship.
I would like to move that we do that. I let you wordsmith it. I don't want to try and put it, but I do want to do this, and I'd like to make the motion that we do this. And I think you've heard my introduction, and I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Pringle, any discussion on this? Councillor Weimer.
Yeah, I guess I'd just kind of like to see the numbers of the unrestricted accumulated surplus before moving forward with that. On ours, it's, 3.2 and it goes down a little below 3. Can you throw that together real quick here?
On the screen is where, what I'm showing there is what our general sewer and water are based on our current standing for unrestricted surplus. Of course, there's still the finishing of this year and whatever surplus may be generated of this year, if there's any, is not reflected in this, so that would just add on to this number at this stage. So this is how it is currently split. So 2.1 is in the general unrestricted million, that is, 639,000 in sewer, 467,000 in water. So about half of that. Well, sorry, that's not half of that. That's what's in there. And then when I did the projection, I took our anticipated costs for 2026 through 2030 to determine what our 6-month threshold is, determine how much could be transferred out of these funds over to the capital.
Follow-up question, Councillor Weimer?
And if we do the transfers with those numbers that I have, it would change the balances in the unrestricted to 1.2 under general. 264,000 in the sewer and 172,000 in the water. Our current estimated operating costs is basically double those for the sewer and the water and general.
And I guess a follow-up question, our reserves, are there, I guess legal implications that would force it to stay there versus being unrestricted?
Reserves are subject to the policy or the bylaw that established them. So the general capital one is for general capital purposes, equipment, roads and whatnot, anything that's not water and sewer. Sewer is for all the sewer stuff and water would be for water.
Mhm.
That's the only thing, once it's in the reserve, it's established for those initiatives.
So we're not potentially shooting ourselves in the foot by restricting our unrestricted funds?
No, again, we established a policy that we'd keep our unrestricted at least a half a year of operations to bring us to when our revenue would come in from our tax bills.
Perfect, thank you.
Happy with that, Councillor Weimer? You're good? Okay. Councillor Pickard, Councillor Pringle. So there's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor? Good. And I'm very much an advocate of giving praise where praise is due. I brought some of these questions to our administrator's attention because of, and the administrator did a lot of legwork in a very short period of time and actually worked over the weekend. He probably just wants to turn his telephone off because he gets tired of seeing all these requests from me to look at this, look at the other thing. Is this possible? Is that possible? But he never fails to rise to the occasion. And then he put something together for us this evening in very short notice that we consider that I think would be very beneficial in my minds for this organization, especially for our operations and for our community. And so again, I'm very much a person who's recognizes folks that rise to the occasion. And thank you very much, CAO. And I don't know if Mr. Doxey was bothered on the weekend because of some of my inquiries, but if he was, thank you to you also, Director of Operations Doxey. The nuts and bolts of it, Councillor Waymeyer brought up a couple of things that I was concerned about, and that was from, this is the carryover from last year, and you guys have addressed that and said that you're going to bring that information back to us because, I want to be sure about the bridge project. But other than that, most of the stuff that I see in there is stuff that's really legitimate and it needs to be done. I know that there could probably be, we had a wholesome discussion about I last time. I don't think people want to embark on another discussion about I again, but I see you brought me back a proposal that is little different than we had last year. You've kind of identified two areas through your assessments with our high I areas, which is McQuina and Dogwood. And I would agree with you. Dogwood's the oldest probably subdivision in our community. McQuina is a high I area. And I see that you've identified those as something that you want to address. And you've got your assessments and your financing based on that. And I'm more, although I'd like to see a smaller number, but it's stuff that needs to get done. And I'm prepared to be supportive of it this time around. So that was one of the things that I was wrestling a little bit with, but yeah, I'm comfortable with the idea. If you folks have identified that as a high I area during your assessments, and you want to go after those and to do whatever rehabilitation you feel is necessary there, I'm supportive of that. And yeah, and the other thing that I inquired with the administrator before it came forward is I wanted to know what what these numbers meant for the vehicle replacement. I looked at last year's 5-year financial plan is pretty well the same thing. So, and to me, everything that's on that list is fairly legitimate. I don't have any reservations about that. Yeah, so it's a good work, folks. I really like it. And like I said, is that the thing that made it saleable to me, and the reason it's going to be a shorter evening than a long evening is because of all the work that was done in the past to support all of these projects with grant funding. It's much easier for me to approve 33-cent dollar purchases where the other 67 cents is coming from provincial and federal contributions. Now, when you guys do that, that allows our money to go a lot longer, as you can see. If anybody wants to really drill down on this and take a look at all the content here, there's a lot of content, there's a lot of work there, and a lot of things that are going to improve the quality of life in our community for our residents, make it better for our organization and our employees to work in. And I think that I think this is a good plan going forward for the next 5 years. There might be some tweaking that goes on as I look at it a little bit more, but overall, I think it's a really good effort, and I appreciate all the work that staff and employees and whoever else you folks employ in this process to got us to here. So, yeah, I look forward to hearing a little bit more in the follow-up, a couple of questions that we were concerned about, but other than that, I think that it's a good effort. And I think it'd be very beneficial for Gold River, and there's going to be, I think this next 5 years is a good plan for the next 5 years. Council, do you have any other questions that you want to address to the staff? Councilor Pickard.
Thank you, Mayor Lott. Thanks so much for all your words. And I feel like we should record that section a while ago where you said how much our staff and administration's leveraged of taxpayer money versus grants. And, I wish every resident knew that how much we were doing for kind of prioritizing projects and keeping operations smooth and upgrading equipment, and you guys were doing and how little of it, like 30% is taxpayer money and the rest is from grants. So it's super awesome and inspiring, and I wish there was more than one person to know, but we know. So thank you guys. And one thing that I kind of flagged while you were talking to, we were talking about projects, and it's not really on our radar anymore because we had our structural assessment done and Mac Laney gave us our reports, but is the JCC on projects, or it is a project, but is it on anyone's radar? Are we going to have any further work done or repairs or renos? And we're coming into that time when that gutter and the ice is going to come, and we know that's, there's usually complaints about that, and it can be safety with the ice. So where's that in the project?
Director of Operations, Doxy, that's
Thank
kind of
you.
more at an operational level, I would think, right now than our project level.
Yeah, I think from a capital perspective, we're really kind of holding out for like a more defined plan forward. Operationally, there are some very minor things that we're going to be looking at. There's some like eaves troughs that we need to look at cleaning out. There's some very, very minor repair to that end, but we're trying to navigate, minor repairs without triggering like you know, full on, you know, $1 million project, so to speak. So we're trying to keep it down to a minimum, but keep it safe. But so yeah, I think you'll see, you know, some gutter cleaning and some possible some downspout repair and some things like that that are like minor that we can kind of do with internal forces. So
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, it's good to hear because we know that just you guys are mitigating kind of risks around there and it's been identified and flagged as a bit of an issue. And I know it needs more than we have in the budget for some big structural stuff. So hopefully we'll get a plan for that sometime down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Pickard. Councilor Pringle.
Sorry, I just did have a question too. I was wondering about the RCMP portion of our building.
Yes,
Do we have an update about that? Can we ask that at this meeting?
absolutely.
For,
We did have some interest expressed by the province, but then the province clamped down on money, so that's kind of at a standstill. So we'll have to determine what we want to do moving forward with the space at this, in the upcoming future. We also do have another piece of property that we'll need to address too, so that's also on my radar, but hasn't made it to council yet, so.
Good, Councilor Pringle.
yes.
While we're on this building, the PSA, you had $100,000 that was allocated in this budget last year. You've rolled it over to this year. My understanding that was going to be for recladding the building. But I see in your report, you seem to be focusing more on the first phase where you talked about replacing the glasses all in the foyer here on your project summaries. So is the emphasis on because it says phase one, and so you talked about replacing glasses on the front and going, I guess you're going to thermal glass, but is that still the priority is to reclad the building?
if I may, to your worship, yes, the occupational class of the building required us to bring into an architect into the conversation.
Okay.
And so we've been working through some details with the architect on just the finishings around windows and doors and things like that, and how that'll be attached. So it's not a huge scope for an architect. It's a legal requirement.
Okay,
And we're looking for some constructability details in terms of like what kind of materials can we attach and how do we deal with the how you say the building orifices. So making sure, you know, ventilation systems can exist and are tied in and sealed, and windows and doors. So
great. And there was another question that I wanted to touch bases with, because I know I had I expressed some reservations about it even being in the budget, and that was for the 120,000 that was budgeted for 2028 under the PSB Fire Equipment Fire Bay for the new ventilation system in there. And the concern I had back then was I thought that $120,000 could be allocated to more pressing priorities than a ventilation system that wasn't convinced was really necessary or critical. I didn't see any WorkSafe orders telling us we had to do that. And what I understand from their standard operating procedures over there is when they get a call, they open the roller gates and they move the vehicle outside, they idle it out there. If they're working on it, they work on it outside, or they've got an exhaust hose that they can put on the back of the. So I think it to indulge Councillor Waymark, because he had some questions about whether or not we should or shouldn't. And I don't think the full council was sold on my reservations about that, but we left it in there for 2028 because we wanted, I'm not too sure we're even looking for it. I don't know if we were wanting to deal with it, because I just wanted to eliminate it. But I think the council wasn't prepared to eliminate it. They wanted some reassurance that that's something that we could go carry on with the way we are right now, and we'd be fine. We wouldn't be violating any of our WorkSafe regulations. And I just want to know if you've given any thought to that. Director of Operations, Doxy.
at this point, not sufficient thought to have a very detailed response. I need to have some more conversations with the fire chief, their mechanic, and like probably some discussions through our WorkSafe committee. would be appropriate. So where we can kind of look at the regulations, maybe see what kind of gases are present in the building under operating conditions, and just kind of circle back through like where do we sit in terms of like, are we offsides or onsides with the regulation, and then what kind of what would be an appropriate response. So we haven't had time to do that just yet. So
And that's kind of where I thought it would be, but I just wanted to speak to it because it's in there and I'm not going to ask for it to be removed because I don't think I have support to get it removed, but I do want to get a follow-up on it eventually and find out whether or not that's something that is, in the opinion of staff, is something that's a priority and required, or is there other pressing priorities over there that we could spend the $120,000 on? But yeah, it's not urgent, but I do want to have it on my radar. Other than that, I'm good. I think that you gentlemen have put together a good plan for the Village of Gold River for the next 5 years, address the majority of the concerns that we have in equipment replacement, repairs to existing infrastructure, replacement of existing infrastructure. And again, you've made it viable for us or possible for us because like I said, big number, $9,328,850 worth of projects that I see there, and we're getting it for $3,425,785. So that's 33 cents on. Basically, we're paying 33 cents on the dollar, and so I'm pleased with it. I'm sure there'll be a little tweaking or stuff as we go along before we get it, adopted. But it's I think a good solid plan for the Village of Gold River. So thank you for all your efforts. Anything else you want to address on here before I just rip through the rest of it and get us back to the Blue Jays baseball game? Counselor Vickers.
Thank you, through the chair. And I don't know which of you gentlemen this is for, but this kind of flagged when Director Doxey mentioned that we've had lots of reports done, so kind of helps kind of springboard into funding and grant opportunities. So it makes me excited about the REDIP grant that we decided on to do some assessment of the wharf and see if we could make that better or expand it or generate more income or just make it more conducive to tourism and locals. And I think that's due the 31st. So is that everything coming along with that? Is that going to be okay to get in? Thank you.
I'll take that one, I guess,
Sure.
if I may, through your worship. Yes, sorry. The Economic Development Officer, Chelsea, and I received a draft proposal today. We're just going to be tweaking it, and we should be in good sorts to make a submission by, I think, Thursday. She's got Friday off, so we'll have that submitted.
Thank you, sir. Follow-up question, Counselor?
Another few. Awesome. That's so great. And maybe we'll see some wharf projects on here in the next few years. But thanks for all your hard work on that. It's a lot to put together and yeah, get it done before.
Yeah, I
Christmas
should
meeting.
defer that to the Economic Development Officer. She's been a huge help in preparing grants. So, but yes.
All good with the questions, Council? Move on to number 8, reports from councils.
You still have the question to vote on, your worship?
Which one are we voting on? Yeah,
The
that's
receipt
been a
of
while.
the report.
Deeper information.
Oh, yeah, we're still on that one. We're still on that one. Oh, my God. Thank you, guys. Sometimes I'm glad I got a good group around me. Okay. Call for the question on receipt. All in favor? Done. Thank you. Report from council, none. Information's none. Reports of committees, none. Bylaws, none. Correspondence, none. New business, no questions from online, sir. Thank you. Motion to adjourn in camera, not necessary. Rise and report. No. Adjournment to care to move it. Councilor Weimer, second by Councilor Pickard. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Done. Well done, you guys. Thank you again. Appreciate you guys coming out. I know that you work all day and then you got to come out and